What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing another tier list video. I really like doing these. It's low stress, fairly low production, and I get to talk about music. And this time around, I'm not talking about a specific band. I'm talking about an entire genre that predominantly existed in the 90s, but did kind of bleed into the 2000s, and that would be alternative rock. Specifically, like 90s alternative rock had a definite sound to it that even kind of, like I said, bled into the 2000s. Even though it was a different decade, some bands were still having that 90s alternative rock feel. Now, tonight we have a large list of records to talk about here, but it shouldn't be too bad. I think it'll be kind of fun. And, you know, I don't claim to be the internet's busiest music nerd like some other music YouTubers, so, like, I haven't heard every single one of these albums, but I've heard most of them. So, as a general rule of thumb, if a record comes up and I don't even know what it is and I can't decipher what it is from the album title, then I'm just going to put it in the don't know category. I made my own categories this time too, by the way. All that S through A tier crap was just too confusing to, I think, some people. So if an album, say, like Nevermind by Nirvana, I mean, obviously that's going into the classic bin, and then we have the albums I think are good. It's a good album. We have okay albums. We have albums that are meh, and then we have albums that just suck, if I can stop having this stroke. And when I'm unfamiliar off the top of my head about an album, we're going to jump on to Spotify and take a quick little look at the track listings. Sound good? All right, well, let's get started. This is in no particular order. I'm just going off the order that the tier list maker website gave me. Up first, we have Soundgarden's 1994 release, Super Unknown. I'm going to go ahead and put that one into the good category here. So yeah, that had their biggest hit on it, Black Hole Sun, which everybody, you know, if they sing a Soundgarden song, if a normie sings a Soundgarden song, they're going to choose Black Hole Sun. They might do Spoon Man, which also came off this album. Day I Tried to Live. Those were some of the hits off the album. But in general, I feel like it's just a good album and not like a classic album. Up next, we have 1991's or 1990's Depeche Mode album, Violator. I mean, that's clearly a classic album. And we have our first jump cut of the night from my light sensitivity. So yeah, I got lights all on me, and so the sneezing happens. Anyway, 1991's Violator by Depeche Mode was definitely a certified classic album by now. You know, Enjoy the Silence, which, you know, quite frankly, I am burned out on. I'm burned out on that album because it's one of those. It's a relatively short album. And all these fucking remasters on Spotify now, they always tack on shit that wasn't on the original album. That really annoys me. It's like the deluxe edition. It's like, no, just give me the stuff that was on the album. But, you know, you had songs like Personal Jesus, you had World in My Eyes, you had Blue Dress. There was a lot of hits off this record, but Enjoy the Silence definitely like solidified Depeche Mode as like just legends, I guess. That song really blew up and stood the test of time, and people still love it to this day, so it's a classic album. Up next, we have Rage Against the Machine's Evil Empire. I'm going to definitely put this in the good album category. Maybe if it had been their self-titled or Battle of Los Angeles, I would have done classic, but Evil Empire was that in-between time for Rage Against the Machine. It saw them kind of get a little bit more experimental, because their first album, their self-titled, was very, I would say it was a very, like, lateral album in the sense of, like, you had Tom Morello doing, you know, just these straight-up, like, single-chord riffs and utilizing his out-of-this-world, yet-to-be-unmatched effects, pedal stylings, and to get the different guitar solos and all that. But I feel like Evil Empire had a lot more soundscapes that Tom Morello was using on guitar to make some really bizarre sounds that started off a lot of songs. He had People of the Sun, where he's literally using an Allen wrench to scrape up and down the strings to make that Anyway, great drum beats. The drum mix on this album were fantastic. The drums sounded phenomenal on here. The hits, Bulls on Parade, and I think that's the only one that came from this album. But, I mean, that's a huge song, obviously. You can't not bop to that song. So yeah, good album. Up next we have Green Day's American Idiot. Put that in the meh category. I know that was a huge album for a lot of people who are millennials or even Gen Zers. But for me, when I first heard the song American Idiot, I was like, oh, cool, Green Day's getting back to like their roots, you know, with their classic pop punk style. But then they really like expanded their sound with Jesus of Suburbia, which is a 9-minute long song, and it was just so like overly dramatic and overly like it didn't seem very authentic to me. It seemed like at this point in Billy Joel's life, I think he was at least in his mid to late 30s, maybe early 40s, and he's still writing songs. And I hate it when punk bands do this, but they get older, but they're still writing to like a teenage audience, and it's just weird, and like there's no way that they're still this fucking sad, especially knowing that Green Day has sold a bajillion records. So I felt there was a lot of like inauthenticity to this album, and my God, Wake Me Up When September Ends is just such an annoying song. Like, it's so melodramatic. I guess that would be my whole theme of this album. I thought Boulevard of Broken Dreams was all right. Anyway, yeah, that album was always just meh to me. Up next, we have Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusions 1 and 2. Didn't listen to the record, but I hate Guns N' Roses. But like I said, I didn't listen to the record. There might have been some hidden gems on there that I would have really liked, but I'm putting that in the I don't know category. Up next, we have Nirvana's Bleach. I will put that as an okay album. Bleach, Nirvana's first effort into the music world before they signed to a major, was, it was in keeping with the kind of music that was going on in Seattle at that time. You had, About a Girl, which went on to become butchered by Wes Scantlin of Puddle of Mud. You got a lot of songs on here that would make it into their set list, like Negative Creep and like Love Buzz. It was a solid first outing. I mean, nobody could have ever imagined like the album after Bleach would just like change the world the way it did. But yeah, it did though. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, moving on. Radiohead, Pablo Honey. I'm going to put this in the meh category. Radiohead's first debut album, Pablo Honey, with the song that the band has come to hate and then come to just begrudgingly accept, which was Creep, the song that everybody sings at my karaoke gigs when I host them. That song became a radio darling for the 90s alt sound. But yeah, again, it was one of those songs that I think was just kind of created on a lark, and it made it on the record. And I mean, Jesus, I'm looking at the Spotify right now. It's almost at 1 billion plays compared to some of these other songs that just have a couple million each, which is great. But anyway, they have Stop Whispering, which is, I mean, a lot of this is very Brit pop or Brit rock inspired, a little shoegazy in moments. I liked Anyone Can Play Guitar pretty good. Yeah, it just was an okay album. Not definitely got a lot better from there. Up next, we have Radiohead, The Bends, which was their second album. I'm gonna put this. This was a good record. The Bends was good. It had My Iron Lung on it. It had the song Just. It saw the band getting more like 90s alternative, I would say, for sure, and less Brit poppy, Brit rocky. In the music video for Just, I remember seeing it as a kid and being so weirded out, the guy just laying on the street for no reason, and then he tells everybody why he's laying on the street, and then they're all just laying on the street. Up next, we have Offspring's Smash. This goes into the classic category. This album was the first independent album to sell 1 million records. Might have been the only one. I've probably been more since then, but this was the first independently released album that sold as much as it sold. All of the Offspring classics are on here. Self-Esteem, Gotta Get Away From Me, Bad Habit, Nitro, Come Out and Play. They had a lot of hits on here. They also introduced their kind of like ska influences, because they definitely had, every punk band, I don't know why it's a rule, but it's like every punk band in the 90s, they had to have at least 1 or 2 ska tracks on their album, or else it wasn't like a proper punk album. I don't know. Up next, we had Alice in Chains' Dirt. That is a classic album. That was their, I think, second proper album because they had the Sap EP that came out after Facelift, and Dirt just really solidified them as a band and really legitimized them in a lot of people's eyes. It made them the band that could do more than just Man in the Box, and the versatility of the songs on this album, the darkness of the album in of itself. It's not an easy album to listen to if you are in a good mood and want to stay in a good mood, but it's heavy. It deals a lot with drug use and suicide and all that kind of stuff. My video just got demonetized. You're welcome. And I mean, the song Wood to this day is still a radio staple. Love that album. Up next, we have Vitology by Pearl Jam. Anybody who knows me, who have been watching this channel, knows that I am not a fan of Pearl Jam. I've never heard this album, so I'm going to put it in the don't know category. Nothing in the sucks category so far. That's because I really like this genre of music. What can I say? Up next, we have... Sorry, I'm a douche. I'm a vape douche. Californication by the Chili Peppers. That to me is a classic. Californication is a classic, in my opinion. It hit me at the right time, at the right age. I think I was like 11 or 12 when I got this album for Christmas. It was in my stocking. I just loved I loved the negative nature, the minor nature, I should say. There was a lot of like minor guitar chords and minor guitar phrasing in this on this album, and Flea and John Frusciante's interaction has always been a joy to listen to, how they play off of each other. And Scar Tissue, Parallel Universe, Californication, overall just amazing album. Up next, I don't know what this album is. These are like the size of postage stamps on here. I don't. It doesn't have a band name, so I don't know what that album is. And if you want to yell at me for not knowing that album, then do so in the comments. Up next, we have Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger. I would pretty much say that's a classic album. If we look at Bad Motorfinger, you had Rusty Cage. That song is just so legendary. Outshined, another legendary song. Slaves and Bulldozers. It shows Chris Cornell's just out of this world vocal range. Jesus Christ Pose, yet again. Just doing some. Even though they were thrown into the grunge pile, they were still doing such unique things in that moment with that first record. Well, it wasn't their first record, but their major release. Up next, we have Alice in Chains' final official studio album before Lane Staley passed away, which was just self-titled, and I would say it's a good album. It's a good album. It's not a classic album. Grind, the first opening song, got a really cool groove. You got Sludge Factory on there, which is also a really unique sounding song. Heaven Beside You, that's a great song. Head Creeps is a good song. That's all that's sticking out to me right now, but yeah, so that one's definitely a good album. Up next, we have Swan's Soundtrack for the Blind. No clue, guys. No clue about that one. Oh, Rage Against the Machine, Battle for Los Angeles. Look at me. I was just talking about that. To me, that's a classic album. Testify, Guerrilla Radio, Voice of the Voiceless, Sleep Now in the Fire, Calm Like a Bomb, Mic Check. These are all just classic Rage songs. They just really hit their stride with this album. And it's just a shame that they had such a small output, but they made such a big mark. And you just wish they had put out... You wish that their last album hadn't been a reworking of cover songs, but it is what it is. I still feel like they had another good album in them, and I still feel like they do. Zach's voice sounds exactly the same. Tom still kicks ass. The other guys still kick ass because they, as we heard in Audio Slave. So, anyway. Beck Odelay. Put this in the meh category. I know a lot of people really like this album by Beck, and that's fine and all, but I don't know, man. It just, some songs were cool. Devil's Haircut was pretty cool. New Pollution was pretty cool. Where It's At was okay. It's just, Beck is so sporadic. I don't even know how you could he was one of those guys who just barely made it under the radar of alternative rock, because he's really not rock a lot of times, and he's really he's genre flipping all the time in every song, and it's just hard to lump this into alternative rock, even though I know radio did and still does with that song Loser. It's really not that rock at all, but I guess it had that same feel and vibe. Up next, we have an album that should not be on this list, Enema of the State by Blink-182. There's nothing alternative about this album. This is a purely pop-punk record. I'm putting it in the don't know category because it does not belong on this list. Whoever made the albums for this list got it right most of the time, but not for that album. It's a classic album in its own right, but it doesn't belong on this list. Blink-182 have never been alternative rock except in their later albums. Up next, we have Metallica's Load. Oh, now that's a controversial one there, but I think there was still some good riffs on there. Okay, before I find out what riffs, because I get Load and Reload confused all the time. I never invested myself much into Metallica to know the difference between. Okay, Ain't My Bitch, that's a pretty good song. 2x4, don't remember. House of Jack, Until It Sleeps is a pretty good song. King Nothing, Hero of the Day. Yeah. Oh God, Mama Said, the country song. This album, just by virtue of who Metallica was and what they stood for, this album sucks because they really just at this point they were really just giving the middle finger to all their old fans. We don't care what you have to say. We're doing what we want to do, which an artist should do. But when you make the choice of doing it in such a cringe fashion by getting tailored suits and cutting your hair and wearing eyeliner when you never used to wear eyeliner, getting this goofy labrae piercing, and trying to write a country song, it just was ugh, what an awkward midlife crisis that was. Up next, we have Green Day's Nimrod. I know some of the songs off of there, but not enough to rank it, so I'm just going to put in the I don't know. Green Day, Dookie, that is a classic album, even though Green Day is not my favorite band by any means, but I can't deny Billy Joel Armstrong's songwriting. That guy can write a fucking hook. He can write a hook, he can write verses, he can write songs. He's a great songwriter. Billy Joel Armstrong is a great songwriter, and it may not be my exact cup of tea, but that doesn't take away from its classic status. Up next, we got another classic, Nirvana's Nevermind. I really don't have to say anything about this album that I haven't already said. In pretty much any video when I'm talking about music, I always bring up Nevermind and the Smells Like Teen Spirit music video because you really can't have a discussion about the 90s or the 80s transitioning into the 90s without talking about this specific album, Nevermind. So, yeah, obviously classic. This next album, I have no idea. Their band name isn't on it. That's going in there. Next, we got Jeff Buckley. I think the one studio album he did, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. Yeah, so after looking through his discography on Spotify, pretty sure Grace was his only release before his untimely death shortly after that album came out. This dude literally drowned in a river. He was walking with his buddy. He's oh, there's a river. I'm going to go swim in it. And he swam in it. His buddy looks away. And then when he turns back, Jeff Buckley is nowhere to be found. His body is found, I think it was a few days later or something, down the coast or whatever. Yeah, it was kind of unexplained, what happened. Maybe he just was a shitty swimmer or he hit his head on a rock or something. I don't know. I don't know enough about this album to really say one way or another. I know it's a classic to a lot of people, but I can't really speak on it, though I am aware of it and its significance. Oh, we got Reload by Metallica. Yeah, that just don't give me any of that era. If they had taken some songs off of both albums and just made one album, I would have put it in the good category because there's some good enough songs on both albums to make one good album, but they didn't, and the shit that they padded it with was just cringy. Up next, we have Metallica's Black Album. I mean, obviously, that's a classic album to me. Great songs. Perfect balance of heaviness and pop sensibility. I know it's sacrilege to say pop sensibility in the same breath when talking about Metallica. But was it a riff that got stuck in your head? Was it a melody or a lyric that you found yourself singing down the road? That's called a pop hook. That's pop sensibility. Nothing wrong with writing those. God knows more artists need to think about that. Up next, we have Nirvana and Utero. This album has always been meh to me. Kurt Cobain definitely wanted to go back to his like punk roots, and he didn't necessarily care for the slickness of Nevermind. Even though, I mean, it's not that slick. It still sounds good. It still sounds heavy. It still sounds like raw, but it does have a studio sheen to it. He wanted something that was more raw and more, less commercial. And he originally had Steve Albini produce the album, who was known for, his punk rock ethos. And he didn't even accept payment for it. He didn't accept royalties from the album. He just accepted a lump sum up front, which was, he could have made a lot more money if he accepted royalties, but he didn't feel ethically it was right. So that's Steve Albini for you. But then they ended up, I don't think the label liked the job that Steve did, so they had to go to a different studio. So you end up with this album, which just really Heart-Shaped Box and Rape Me, maybe Penny Royalty, all apologies for sure. There were some popular songs off of this album, but it definitely felt like it was the sunsetting period of Nirvana's career, and I'm not saying that ironically or tongue-in-cheekily. It just kind of felt like a band that if they had made a fourth album rather, I don't know. Like, God knows what it would have sounded like. The music scene would have changed so much by that time, and it would have been interesting to hear, but In Utero was definitely a disappointing follow-up to Nevermind, in my opinion. What's this? Oh, Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory. I really don't like Oasis. I'm going to put that in the sucks category, actually, because I really can't stand Noel and Liam Gallagher. I think Noel's the singer, or maybe it's Liam. I don't know. I can't stand the dude's voice. I can't stand the clear Beatle worship going on with them in the emulation of the Beatles, and just the whole snooty. What, mate? What you looking at? That whole snotty kind of British punk rocker vibe. Never really cared for that. Pearl Jam's fucking GOAT album, I forget what it's called, Yield, or I don't think it was called Yield, but anyway, Riot Act, I think it was Riot Act. I haven't listened to it because I don't like Pearl Jam. Okay, what is this? Pixies Doolittle. I think that is honestly, I haven't listened to that one enough to rate it. What the fuck is this? Is this another Pixies album? Whatever it is, I haven't listened to it. Pearl Jam's 10. I have listened to Pearl Jam's 10. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, yes, they have all their hit songs on there that they have played on the radio ad fucking nauseum. I'm tired of all the songs off of that album. Even the non-hit songs, they don't do much for me. There was an energy to this album. You definitely could tell there was something going on with this young new band. There was a viral or vitality is what I'm trying to say. There was a vitality to the album, and all that, but it wasn't my sound, man. What can I say? It wasn't the sound I was looking for. Up next, we have Foo Fighters' Color and Shape. This was their sophomore release, I want to say. It's a good album. Good album. It's good mainly for the hits, to be honest. Everlong is one of the best alternative rock songs ever made. One of the best rock songs ever. I mean, just that atmosphere in that song. It's just so. And Grohl's voice was the perfect voice for a song like that. With that song, he really found what suited his voice. Then you had Monkey Wrench, which is almost like a punk song. Good song, had a lot of radio-friendly vibes to it. My Hero, badass drums, cool song, very dramatic. Hey Johnny Park was a cool song, epic guitar riffs. Then he had some slow ballady ones like Walking Away From You or whatever. Good album. Up next we have Alice in Chains' EP Rotten Apples. To me, it's almost a classic, but it's really good. The song Rotten Apples in and of itself is amazing. Nutshell is a classic song. I mean, everybody loves that song. I Stay Away with the symphony and everything. No Excuses, Whale and Wasp, Don't Follow. And then you have the last track, Swing on This, which is just kind of a stupid song. And I think they knew that. But no, really good EP for them. Up next, we got Blur. I got to put this in the don't know category. I'm not a huge fan of like what the English had to contribute to alternative rock in the 90s aside from Radiohead. Never really cared for Bush, never cared for Blur, never cared for... Up next, we have Rage Against the Machine's self-titled album. This was definitely a classic album. It set the stage for basically a band that created a whole new sound in rock. Just those single chord riffs that were just very Black Sabbath-y, but modern. And then you had Zach with his high-pitched, raps on top of everything, solid rhythm section, just the way that Tom Morello utilizes his pedals. Every bit of the guitar he uses to make some kind of crazy sound effect. Nobody played guitar quite like that. And that first album was just really came out of the gate swinging. Classic album, fantastic. Up next, we have the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic. A lot of people would put that in the classic, but not me. There was a lot of filler in there that I didn't care for, that just didn't do anything for me. When they leaned too heavily on the whole funk aspect of it, and I know that's a big part of their sound, I just didn't care for that. I'm looking at the track list. Very long album, too. I felt like there was quite a bit of songs that could have probably been cut out on here. Of course, you have Under the Bridge, which I'm so sick of hearing. Give It Away, which I'm sick of hearing. These are good songs, but I mean, honestly, right now, the title track, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and Breaking the Girl are probably my two favorite songs off of that album. But it's still a good album. REM, Out of Time. Man, it's really sad that like the only REM album they put on this list is Out of Time, because they had a lot of... Monster was a classic 90s alternative rock album, if you ask me, but that's not on here. Well, can't do nothing about that. This is a really good album. Not alt rock by any means. So really, it probably shouldn't be on this list. I mean, this was the one with Losing My Religion on it, which has more of an acoustic-y alt vibe to it. I mean, the driving instrument is a mandolin, so... take from that what you will. But they had some great songs on here. It's just not really 90s alternative. I mean, I guess if you count like Texarkana and had fucking Shiny Happy People, for fuck's sakes. People don't realize that was basically like a song mocking consumerism and capitalism. But anyway, they thought it was literally like, oh, Shiny Happy People, I like this. This is cute, whatever. Up next, whoo, daddy, big one from me. Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream. Throw that right to rocket ship right up to classic album status. Not a lot of people will argue about that with Siamese Dream. Just totally head and shoulders better than their first release, Gish. Less psychedelic kind of paisley shirts and long hair, and more rock. I feel like this album, to a certain degree, like really refined and informed what 90s alternative rock was, with songs like Cherub Rock and Geek USA and Quiet and Mayonnaise. This entire album is just a masterpiece from the beginning to end. There's not a single bad song on this album. And then they followed that one up with Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, which was a double album that was, one of my favorite albums of all time. So, yeah, Smashing Pumpkins, they were red hot in the 90s. And then, I don't know what happened. Up next, Sonic Youth, Daydream Nation. I know as like a 90s alternative rock fan, I should know this album along with Doolittle by Pixies, but I don't. Sorry. Just never really got into Thurston Moore's voice or whatever. Stone Roses, how apropos, I was just talking about you, haven't heard it. Sonic Youth, haven't heard that one. And what is this? Wipers? I guess it's a bit... sorry, I've never heard of that one. All right. Well, there you have it. That is my tier ranking of the greatest alternative albums of the 90s. Yeah, I don't think there's anything from 2000 in here. So, yeah, I guess these are all 90s / late 80s. I think Bleach might have come out in 89 by Nirvana. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. I know there's a lot of albums that are missing from this list, and there's a lot of albums on this list that shouldn't be here. But this was the closest tier list that I could find that had most of the albums that I would consider essential 90s alternative listening. What did you think about this list? What would your list be? How did you feel about my don't know list? Are you pissed off at me for not knowing some of these records? And are you pissed off at me for putting other of these records in such spots? Like how could you put Battle of Los Angeles and Classic in the classic list and put 10 by Pearl Jam in the OK or In Utero as meh, Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to like, subscribe, and all that bullshit. And until next time, have a good rest of your night.